The wait is over, Joe Ballers. Football is back. Get ready for another season of highs, lows, friends, enemies, betrayals, and of course, Joe. Before we get into this week's matchups, there is some league business to be discussed. First, we must acknowledge our reigning champions, Team Mahomes, led by Bobby Dahlhoff. Team Mahomes were not a favorite heading into the season or even heading to the playoffs, but they showed us that Joe Ball goes beyond the numbers. It goes beyond the stats. Joe Ball is about who can dig deep and show that they want it more. Well done, Team Mahomes. Secondly, we have a new team this year with the addition of Team Amber, led by Amber Coe. We are very excited to see Amber's unique management style in our league. One more note about this team is that Amber agreed to change her name to whatever Joe Mixon-A-Water owner Matthew McJoint chose. In accordance with this agreement, Team Amber will be renamed Guantanamo Bay. Without further ado, let's get into those amazing Week 1 matchups. Our first matchup is Joe Mixon-A-Water McJoint versus Team Bransma. Joe Mixon-A-Water, formerly Chicken Joe Mixon, have undergone a name change after struggling at the end of last season. J-Maw were able to acquire some very high-level players in Justin Jefferson and Josh Allen during the draft, but this came at the expense of their running back talent. Should be interesting to see how they are able to fill those running back slots. Team Bransma have a very solid starting lineup with Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Swift, and reigning Super Bowl champion Matthew Stafford. With some wide receiver injury problems on the bench, don't be surprised if Kadarius Toney puts up some numbers at some point this season for Team Bransma. The next matchup is Team Fields Day Mallers versus Joe Mama Laufenberg. Team Fields Day is going to look to rely heavily on their team's namesake, Justin Fields, as he is in the starting QB role, along with his favorite target, Darnell Mooney, starting at wide receiver. Najee Harris and Keenan Allen add some firepower to this team that could be making a run later this season. It will be interesting to see if Team Fields Day decides to fill their empty bench slot. Despite being preoccupied with apple picking during the draft, Joe Mama have a solid team heading into the season. Austin Eckler is hoping to improve upon his impressive 2021 campaign and be a top 3 running back this season. DJ Moore also has high expectations this season, with the Panthers getting what many believe to be an upgrade at QB this season. With 3 QBs on the roster, Joe Mama have plenty of options there. This should be a thrill of a matchup. Queen's Barb Army Connors versus Team Meat Joe Hobday is a matchup that is receiving a lot of attention. Doubters are saying that Queen's Barb's Army reached on taking Travis Kelce, but a Week 1 win against a formidable opponent would really quiet them down. QBA have a great wide receiver room, and if rookie running back Breece Hall out of Iowa State can live up to the high expectations, this team is a contender to not come in last this year like they did last year. Despite the on-field anticipation, a lot of the drama surrounding this matchup revolves around QBA's controversial new team logo. Team Michov had a great regular season last year, but were unable to get it done in the playoffs. Justin Herbert is surrounded by weapons and has impressed in his first few seasons in the NFL. If running backs Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley can stay healthy and perform at high levels that they have before, this team is a title contender. An intriguing matchup that is not receiving enough attention is I'm Joe Brown versus Guantanamo Joe Bay Coke. I'm Joe got off to a tricky start with the draft, having to make the first few selections from the road, but this team is looking solid. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles have high expectations this season, and if they can keep up with them, Jalen Hurts should be a top 5 fantasy QB option. Travis Etienne Jr. is essentially a rookie after missing last season, so this is a pick that could swing either way. Finally, the chemistry between team owner Andrew Brown and starting wide receiver Marquise Hollywood Brown cannot be understated. In their first season, Guantanamo Joe Bay have selected a very solid team that highlights many current and former Packers. Very fitting for their team name. Beyond the green and gold, Guantanamo Joe Bay have some weapons in Ezekiel Elliott, Robert Woods, and a choice between 3 legendary quarterbacks. Guantanamo Joe Bay are hoping to set the tone in the very first every Joe Ball matchup. In our second matchup of true Joe teams, we have Joe's Guys and Dudes, Kanoki, versus Joe to Hell, Avercamp. These teams went in opposite directions last season, but as we all know, none of that matters now. J-God were able to acquire one of the most valuable players in Joe Ball, Joe Mixon. Lamar Jackson and Mike Williams, both honorary Joes, will also provide some firepower for this team as they try to improve on their 13th place finish from last year. It will be interesting to see if DK Metcalf is able to produce with a QB of Drew Lock's caliber. JTH has the other Cincinnati Joe, Joe Burrow. Burrow led the Bengals to the Super Bowl last year and is hoping to improve upon that. Derrick Henry has been a fantasy force for years now, but if he can produce like he has in the past, he can make a huge difference in this league. This one could come down to the wire, folks. Another under-the-radar matchup for Week 1 is Underneath Joe's Toes, Rain, versus Team Butt, Mirtha. UJT has the highest projected point total of teams playing this week and is first in the projected standings provided by ESPN. As the old adage goes, that's why they play the games. Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, and Terry McLaurin are a lethal three-headed monster at wide receiver. Not only do UJT have 3 good wide receivers, they also have 4 good QBs as well. Only time will tell if they can live up to the expectations. Team Butt is heavily invested in the Denver Broncos with Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams, and Jerry Jeudy on the team. Outside of Denver's bye week, it's a solid-looking team. Much of this team's success will depend on how Russell Wilson will fit into Nathaniel Hackett's offense. Reigning champions Team Mahomes, Dalhoff, will start the season against Team Wettig. Team Mahomes are known to be a very loyal franchise and took Patrick Mahomes early on in the draft as the first QB to go. That's not to say they don't have other weapons. Alvin Kamara and Courtland Sutton are expected to put up good numbers this year. This team's biggest weakness seems to be their running backs, but as we know, their strength is their grit and determination. These are 2 things that will outweigh any stat nerd Matthew Berry throws out. Team Wettig was able to grab last year's best wide receiver with the 5th overall pick in Cooper Kupp, alongside T. Higgins and Amari Cooper. This is a deep wide receiver room. Kyler Murray is known to be a great early in seasons before falling off, so Team Wettig is hoping the new Call of Duty clause in his contract will limit that regression that we've seen in November and December of recent years. If not, perhaps second option Mac Jones can impress in his second year. Finally, we have Team Joe's Bedtime, Lundquist, another team having undergone a name change after last season, formerly Team Joe's Nightmare. Team Joe's Bedtime has high expectations going into the season. As we now have 15 teams that there will be bye weeks, starting with TJB. Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, Mike Evans, and Gabe Davis led this team and are all capable of big things. The big question mark for this team is the QB position, as many would not be confident that Tua and Jameis Winston. Despite this, TJB is as confident as ever. Perhaps their team owner has read Jameis Winston's derangement syndrome, how media bias causes us to overlook the stat of the Hall of Fame NFL career, by Jameis 1 of 1. Real book, by the way, it's here. Or perhaps they are part of Tuanon. Either way, expectations are high. And with that, the 2022 Fantasy Joe Ball season is off and running. The Bills and Rams kick off at 7:20 p.m. Central Standard Time tonight, so keep an eye out for that. I will leave you with my lock of the week, Saints -5.5. Good luck to all.